Prashant Saran has been a through and through regulatory person. He was with the Reserve Bank of India and then with the Securities Exchange Board of India. He initiated several reforms in corporate governance, minimum public shareholding, and mutual funds. One of the defining moments of Saran's career was when he oversaw the folding of Commodities Regulator Forward Markets Commission into SEBI in 2015. He is now a senior consultant with a leading law firm. Thank you, Mr. Saran, for taking time out to talk to us for the virtual museum of the Indian securities market. It was in fiscal 2010 union budget that the government introduced the concept of minimum public shareholding in listed companies. To implement this proposal, SEBI prescribed various methods such as offer for sale, rights and bonus issues, institutional placement program. But then SEBI saw that several companies failed to comply with the new norm. Subsequently, you passed an order against more than 100 entities, freezing voting rights as well as corporate benefits like dividends, rights, and bonus shares. Could you take us through the whole episode and also tell us the challenges SEBI faced at the time?
Thank you, Reena. It is a pleasure to reply to this question. The question gives an impression that the entire thing started in 2010. Actually, you will be surprised. This issue is extremely old. Let's first understand what is the issue. The issue is that public companies, when they are trading with a very small, thin slice of their shareholding. Very few people are actually trading on something like 5% to 10% shares are actually traded. Rest are only held by the promoters. So that is the thing today, and that was the thing for a long, long time. It was as far back as in 1930, this problem was discovered by BSE, which was those days known as Native Stockbrokers Association, that the public float is so small. So the first attempt was made somewhere in the year 1930 by the Native Stockholder Association to mandate that at least 30% of the shares of any company must be held by the public. Of course, there were, people reacted to it. It was never implemented. Off and on attempts were made to keep on introducing more and more public float. When there's a less float, the chances of manipulation of shares is extremely high. So the share price doesn't give you any real indicative value of the company. So all these years, finally, the dates were given and the dates were rolled back. So it happened, kept on happening. Finally, in 2010, again SCRR was amended, and then 3 years time period was given. So this time SEBI decided that this is enough. We are not going to let it again roll back. So we started preparations in a really big way with quite much time in our hand. If I remember correctly, something like 1.5 years or even 2 years back, the preparations started. So we collected the shareholder patterns from BSE and NSE, and then we started calling those companies for discussions, for telling them that you should reduce your promoter shareholding, bring up the public shareholding to 25%. And in the beginning, they used to call a bunch of companies together. Later, when the number was manageable, then they were talking one to one. I was told I was not in those meetings because they were normally held by our corporate finance department. There were as many as 150 meetings with the companies, which were held sometimes with 7 companies, 8 companies, and all those things. So their issues were understood, and then Our attempt were basically twofold. When we are going to implement it, there should be two things. One, there should be no no disruption in the markets. If because of something, a very, very big company, which is on the top 5 or top 10 of the index, if it is restricted, if there are things against it, that there would be market reaction to that kind of a thing. We didn't want any real big player to be affected by this thing, and we wanted to solve the problems before that. The second problem which we had, that we were also dealing with the public sector units. The public sector units, the biggest problem is this, that shares are held by Government of India, but the shares are held in the name of the President of India.
Right.
So if you are taking a uniform action, then it will be anomaly to take any action like that against the President of India. It will be a biggest anomaly in the world. So that was not possible. And PSU shareholding is not really something so easy, because every ministry has got its own problems and all issues. So we had to conduct negotiations on two fronts. One front was the private companies, and the second front was the PSUs. Now, what we had to take care, we could give them methods of coming down on their promoter shareholding, but it would have been very easy to camouflage the situation if, supposing I allowed them to sell on the stock market, so they will tell a connected party to buy it, and on paper it will be there, but actually it will not be there.
Right.
So that is why sale in the market could not have been given. So if we wanted to sell in the market, then we wanted a very open and transparent process. So that was what was allowed. So like that, and then we said, okay, you can have rights issue in which the promoters don't participate, bonus issue where the promoters don't participate, or if you could really transfer it to charitable purposes for a demonstrable independent trust, we are okay with it. So that was one way of doing it, and other was to convince the government and all those things. The government also found certain ways of meeting those things. So as a matter of fact, the success was already there before 3rd June of I think 2013, when that order was passed, because the list which was left with us was only 105. So out of list of thousands long, what we had only 105, and just on the last day, a very important company somehow was able to, we could persuade them to bring back their shareholding within the limits. So no marquee company really was affected by this thing.
Right.
And then when we were drafting the order, we had one issue which was very important for us, that we didn't want to, again, market disruptions. So we wanted to give penalties only for the promoters. The promoters should be affected.
Right.
The company should not be affected.
Right.
It is none of the company's fault.
Right.
So why should the company be affected? We didn't want to affect the company. So if you look at all those restrictions, so those are restrictions on voting rights. So voting rights, we said that okay, what we will do, we'll take it proportionately, 75%, and then you come down. No. So if you had only 76% say then your proportionately very, very minuscule portion of voting rights will be impounded. But if you had 92%, then of course a substantial portion will be impounded.
Right.
So that was the thing which we did. The second thing which we had to debate was whether to affect the independent directors or not. So one view was that independent directors should not be affected, it's not their fault. But we did want the independent directors to take a very strong case within the boards to meet the MPS requirements. So that is why it affected the independent directors also. So that was a conscious decision. And the third thing we did was 3rd June, the date was over, and we didn't want to give any impression that SEBI is dragging its feet. So the order came on 4th.
So, SEBI requires shareholders and financial investors to report their shareholding in a listed company whenever it crosses a specific limit. However, SEBI noticed that non-compliance sometimes stems from various reasons like unawareness or apathy. To plug the loophole, the regulator introduced a system-driven disclosure regime. How has this automation enhanced compliance? Also, is there any other domain or area where automation could simplify things or make life easier for investors, market intermediaries, corporates, as well as for SEBI?
Again, a very good and important question, and which is very close to my heart. The issue of system-based disclosure is much, much broader than what it appears. So, the issue is this: what we realized was that most of our orders, they were on PIT or SAST. I mean, PIT is insider trading regulations, and SAST is the takeover code. Were on the disclosures, and on disclosures, many a time the promoters were, not really aware. I had actually a case of mother of a very business tycoon being punished for something which she didn't have any clue about, because her portfolio was managed by a portfolio manager who didn't understand and bought some shares for her which was not reported. And it was a PMS scheme, so she didn't have any idea what was happening.
Right.
But then we realized that really it is very, very unfair. Then I said that when almost everything is dematerialized, and we had made dematerialization compulsory for the promoters, then I said that at least to begin with, the promoters, so their data is there with us. So why not to pick up that data directly from them, and then if there is any change in that data, if supposing is more than 2% of buying or selling is there, and which needs to be reported under 29(2) of takeover code, then the system itself should pick up, because our system depositories know how much has come in, how much has gone out, what is the acquisition, and whether the person is anyway above 5% or not. They know it already. So why we should make the promoter make the declaration? Let the depositories make it. So to begin with, what we said, that we will run a parallel system, and then we picked up only 2 regulations. One is takeover code, and the other was insider trading. Those were the maximum cases of violation, maximum cases in which our judicial time was wasted, people were harassed, and all those things. So that's what we did. So finally what happened, that we ran parallels. We said that, okay, the systems will pick up, they will also file, and then they can tell us where we are going wrong. And when there is a very good matching between individual filing and the system driven thing, then we will drop it off. So this is exactly what happened. But the idea is much, much broader than, and we had that idea right from the beginning, and perhaps in someday that will also happen. The idea was this, that there is no need for anybody to come to the public. Once I have made a disclosure in the public, then why should I be required to make the disclosure every time I do something? So supposing I am filing my balance sheet with the MCA. The balance sheet is filed nowadays the technology is there that's called XBRL,
Right.
Extended Business Reporting Language. So there what happens that each data, each figure which is reported comes with its own tag. So if you pick up that figure, it gives you its complete history, on which account it is there, everything is there. So actually, if we want to reconstruct anything for anybody, if supposing as SEBI I want certain balance sheet based information from somebody, actually I can myself pick up it from the XBRL filings. So why should I be making them reinvent the wheel every time? My machines can themselves pick up. That's the idea. Yeah, and once we have made one thing, and then there would be one very big issue will be there. Very big help will be there. For example, banks. If banks are picking up balance sheet, so they would be picking up balance sheet right from the authentic balance sheet which has been filed with them. They can massage the data when they're go for a loan application. But when the bank is itself picking up from the MCA data, there's no massaging of data.
Right.
So all those things are possible. So actually, system-based things is very good for honest businessman, and not so good for a dishonest businessman.
Right.
And it only means few things: much harder work on the side of the regulator and very close coordination between the regulators. So on disclosure-based regime, I should be made to disclose those issues which I only know.
Right.
If the public knows it already, I have filed my disclosure at one place, so you can pick up that disclosure, anybody can pick up from there.
Right.
So that was the thinking, and that is what I think at some stage that would be done. And actually, as a matter of fact, if you look at the SEBI adjudication orders, there are hardly any PIT and takeover code disclosure related violations. Earlier, something like 30 to 40% orders were those only.
Right.
All those orders are finished.
Yeah.
SEBI's time is saved, people's time is saved. So system-based disclosure, to my mind, it is a huge success.
Right. Right. Yeah, those sound good. When you were in office, SEBI took action against various unauthorized collective investment schemes. Could you tell us how these schemes operated? How did SEBI tackle these issues? Also, are these schemes still functioning in the market? If yes, what would be your advice to investors? What should they look out for?
Every question you asked, it has got a huge history. The history is, it begins, if I remember correctly, because these are all very, very old things.
Right.
So there was a time when there were hundreds of banks were there, and the banks used to come up and fail regularly. That is pre-independence days, and so much so that anecdotically I understand that Professor C.V. Raman, he lost his Nobel Prize money in bank failure. So that was the kind of situation. It was very, very bad. So RBI tried to, very valiantly RBI fought over years. Actually, RBI didn't get power to regulate banks right in the beginning. That's what people think right from the day when they were regulating banks. No, RBI came into being in 1935, and the Banking Regulation Act was passed in 1949. And perhaps they started actually operating somewhere 50s, in the early 50s. From the mid 50s, they actually started really working. They worked very hard for almost a decade, and in that decade, bank failures became almost unknown. Now, I think Palai Central Bank in 1961 was the last big bank failure of commercial banks. After that, nothing happened. So, when that was plugged, the problem is this, that if you plug one source of mischief, the mischief makers shift to somewhere else.
Right.
So what happened, those people who used to create phony banks and run away with the people's money, so they found another way that okay, we will not form a bank, we'll form a non-banking financial company. So it went to non-banking financial company. So there were hundreds and hundreds of companies they were formed. Hundreds. And when I joined RBI, I think there were something like 16,000 of such companies were there, and there was really not under any control, and hundreds of them, maybe 1,000, were deposit accepting. There were two or three kind of thing was there. So there were many companies were there deposit accepting. So RBI's next focus after having set up, cleaned up the banking space was to clean up the non-banking financial company space. So they started regulating and tightening on the non-banking financial space. So it is my personal guess. It is not a research work. It's not. I am not quoting from any source. So those people, they shifted to this collective investment type of schemes. So you might have heard of certain company known as plantation companies.
Right.
So those were first schemes were those tea plantations and all those things. So what they gave was a very rosy picture that I'll plant a tea tree in your name. You give me this much money, this tree is yours, and it grows. We'll keep on giving you reports, and this much. It will become so much girth will be so many cubic feet of teak, and your 1,000 rupees will become 10 lakh rupees in some 10 years or something like this. So that was this. So this plantation companies became more a big issue, and everybody and his cousin lost money in those plantation schemes. So those plantation schemes came somewhere in the early 80s. And from there, by the time it was mid-90s, the situations was really out of hand. Then there was among the, tussle that who should regulate it. Finally, the issue came to SEBI. SEBI started this thing in a very, very strong note right from the beginning. And they caught some, I remember the figure correctly, something like 654 company. They took very strong action against them, and took, because we could take section 24, that is the filing of criminal complaint, that kind of thing. And many of the courts, actually it is one of those cases where many people were actually sentenced under those things. But the courts didn't share our view. So there was a big disconnect. We used to take action. We used to ban them and all those things. They will go to a court and say that we are not allowing our legitimate business to be carried out. So it is a violation of the fundamental rights, right to make a living. So that is so the courts took a very kind of a broad kind of a view there. So they didn't really say that, and then when we tried to plug the plantation schemes, so the new schemes, all kind of imagination has got no limits. So there were emu farms which were selling emu fur and emu meats. There were goat farms. There were potato schemes. There were gold schemes. But the most common scheme was the land scheme. So where they will say that we have got so much of land there, then we'll cut plots, and then you have got 100 square meters of land in middle of nowhere, and it does not matter, and they will show some land with them. So that kind of a thing happened. So that was one kind of a problem. The other kind of problem was what was known as RNBCs, residuary non-banking companies. So there were two major residuary non-banking companies were there. So one of the company was Peerless. So and other was Sahara. So they were two major because they were the non-banking companies. They were the auto finance companies, or they were hire purchase companies. Those kind of companies were there. So those companies which didn't fall into any classification, they were called RNBCs. So they were the two major RNBCs, and their business model was very different. Their business model was so that there are people outflung into villages and tribal remote areas. So they recruited thousands or lakhs of agents who will go to their places and give them passbooks, collect 1 rupee, 5 rupees, 10 rupees from them, and give stamps and all those things. So they were not even giving them very high rate of return. So their modus operandi was so that they will lose the track, they will lose the passbook someday, and it will lapse.
Right.
So policy lapse was a modus operandi with those companies. So RBI, fought very extended battles with even legal battles and regulatory persuasions with both these companies, and persuaded both of them out of this RNBC model. So what I understand what happened, that one of the companies, what it did, it found another space. It found itself a space into the unlisted companies. SEBI had an oversight over listed companies, the unlisted companies. So those unlisted companies, they issued bonds or convertible bonds or bonds, and they issued millions of bonds, crores of people, they used to issue bonds. So that was what they started doing, and through the agents. The agents had a very, very high commission structure. So they will, sell anything, their conscience and anything, for their 35% or 30% commission. So that was the kind of a network marketing and all those things. So what happened that they issued crores and crores of rupees worth of this thing. This was SEBI didn't know about his unlisted space. By chance, one of that company came for listing. When they came for listing, then they saw this thing that, well, how you shoot so many crores, of bonds, and this is a violation of Companies Act. That where you are issuing these things, and more than 50 you cannot. Yeah. So how did you issue that? So it started from there. So 2010, the first order was passed in that case. So that 2010 order was passed. It finally went to Supreme Court and all those things. And the amounts were stupendous, 25,000 crore rupees in those days. So Supreme Court gave this order to, they told them that 25,000 crore rupees is there, and you deposit 5,000 crore rupees immediately with SEBI. And it will be SEBI's job, and you give them all your shareholders registers or bondholder register, and SEBI's job will be to refund these people. So this order came somewhere in, I think, September 2013 or something. 31st July 2013, the order came. When we got, because Supreme Court order, we got 5,000 crore rupees. Now the question was how to refund. Yeah. So I need bondholder register, an authentic bondholder register. So when we told the company to give the bondholder register, they said that no, you give us, we will prepare and we'll make this thing, and you just we'll give you the list, send it to all these people. So SEBI said, no, that is not correct. We will not allow you to refund it, because where the money will go, we don't know. Yeah. We want the bondholder register. So then they refused to give the bondholder register. So they said, no, there's no single register, we can't give you the register, this and that. So finally, again, Supreme Court said that, okay, you are not giving them the register, give them all the papers. So they gave, and under Supreme Court's order with a deadline of 15 days or something, they gave the paper. Fortunately, we were able to anticipate how much will be the flow of paper. So within about 10 days, 127 trucks
My
of paper were delivered to us. So we had stockholding corporation helped us out with all the huge storage facilities,
Right.
and they could really handle those kind of volumes. But the real problem started when we opened the cartons. When we opened the cartons, we found all those papers were totally messed up, totally mixed up. So, how do you prepare a bondholder register from the application is all mixed up? One page here, somewhere, second page, somewhere else, all together.
Okay.
There was one thing which was very fortunate that one application number was unique in all those things. That helped us. So what we did was something like that we scanned about 6 crore to 9 crore papers,
My goodness.
and each of them we put into a database. Thousands of people were pressed into scanning and making the databases, and all that, since from that primary key was there, from that database the computers mixed it up and prepared a bondholder register. When the real bondholder register was made like this, then we said, okay, although in the meanwhile we had pressure from the Supreme Court, why you're taking so much of time, how to explain that this is what has happened to us. If we tell, it will be seen as, excuses,
Right.
offering excuses.
Right.
Then we said, okay, more time. It will take about 9-10 months for us to do that. Then finally what happened, that when we gave advertisement, you opened up. So maximum we could pay was, if I remember correctly, till I was there, 137 crore rupees were the claims made. So there was suspicion right from the Supreme Court's order that these are all fake. There's something else which is going on behind that. So that suspicion was confirmed. And what I also understand, that later that money was increased from 5,000 to 13,000 crore rupees. Now they have used, and by the time this plug was plugged, it has shifted to cooperative societies. Now Supreme Court has ordered that, okay, use that money to pay off that those cooperative society people.
Right.
So that is the
Yeah.
funny part which is happening. So this was a very, very kind of a difficult things, and I
Yeah.
thought I will talk to you in this interview because this is not really this all in the memory. It's not
Right.
recorded
Right.
everywhere.
Right.
So I won't be able to give you really authentic data or back references for it, but this is the general impression
Right.
which I remember.
Right. Would you like to talk about couple of cases, that kind of, the experience SEBI had in handling those cases? Like you said, there were reams of papers, truckloads of papers that came in. These were all with regard to some of the important cases on CIS which SEBI
Yeah.
was handling. So
Yeah.
would you want to highlight couple of those cases?
Yeah, there were many cases. One of the cases was again a typical land scam scheme. And as early as 1999, SEBI chairman passed an order against him, banning the scheme, asking them to refund.
Right.
Unfortunately, courts didn't hold the same view, and SEBI's orders was reversed. SEBI went to Supreme Court. So 2004, if I remember correctly, the High Court reversed the order. SEBI went to Supreme Court. I mean, Supreme Court is definitely, overloaded for so many things. It took time. Finally, in 2013, they came to us. So they issued an order. They said that you hear them again, and pass a final order. And so within less than a few months, we conducted all the hearings. It was very high-profile case, attended by the who's who of the lawyers of the thing. But finally, we issued an order against them, and and that has till now not been overruled. And in the meanwhile, other things happened that some other agencies also acted on certain customer complaints and seized their properties. So then a committee was formed under the chairmanship of a former judge of Supreme Court, and that has managed to recover some money and refund some of the money. But these are all ongoing things. There were
Right.
other cases where timeshare
Right.
was sold.
Yeah.
There were, I mean, lot of. Then there were pure and pure collect and run away schemes were there,
Right.
where a lot of suicides happened and all those things. So
Right.
all those kind
Yeah.
of things are there. And there was one case where we took we passed an order, and what they did was to go to Mufassal towns of West Bengal and file a case against SEBI in those Mufassal towns. So the district judges, they issued injunctions. So against all district judges or additional district judges, they issued injunctions. Although less than High Court, nobody has got any. Actually, even High Court has got only constitutional power. Under constitutional powers, they can issue an order. Otherwise, the SEBI, after SEBI, it is SAT Supreme Court.
Right.
That is the
Right.
that's order.
Right.
So SEBI's order can be seen by a High Court only on constitutional ground under 226, not otherwise. So, but I mean, the Mufassal Court issues an order. Once Mufassal Court issues the order, then if you disobey the order, whatever merit of the order is a different thing. But action can be taken by the court against you.
Right.
You could be, a non-valuable warrant could be issued
Right.
against you. So
Right.
all those things. So I mean, it was a kind of uphill battle. Our people used to go to Mufassal towns, get the case vacated. I mean, it was and bitten by mosquitoes, this and that. So it was a quite a tall order. So we fought through these cases, and the worst part was when we kept on advertising that this company is bad. There's order against him. Don't deposit money. Despite that, public kept on depositing
Yeah.
money in them, and those companies, they had so much of temerity to come out with the full page or double spread advertisement in newspapers accusing SEBI of misdoings, this and that, and so that was the kind of battles which were fought,
Right.
and I can't say really totally won, no, because they only change
yeah.
their garb, they go
Yeah.
to some other place.
True. You had chaired the International Securities Regulators Grouping on Development of the Corporate Bond Market in Emerging Regions. How far have the government and SEBI initiatives advanced in building a robust debt market in India? Also, in your opinion, what is hindering the development of a thriving corporate bond market here?
Yeah, I was in that committee, and there is a lot of kind of a breast beating about lack of depth in corporate bond market and not a thriving corporate bond market. So there is a general misunderstanding that corporate bond market is compared with the equity market.
Right.
So equity market and corporate bond markets are very different.
Right.
For many reasons. One of the reasons is that the primary reason why a person buys a bond is not appreciation of the bond. He's leaving aside some treasury operators, nobody plays on interest rates. So normally it is buy and hold thing. So whereas a equity share is bought mainly for appreciation,
Right.
not for the dividend.
Right.
So the trading in shares is going to be definitely of an order of magnitude higher
Yeah.
than that of a corporate bond,
Yeah.
because these are basically buy and hold securities.
Right.
That is one difference between the two. The second difference between the two is this, that when a company is there, equities are there, there's a single ISIN.
Right.
You issue first IPO, that's the ISIN there. Rights issue are made, same ISIN.
Right.
Bonus, same ISIN. Preferential allotment, same ISIN.
Right.
So the pool goes on increasing, so the liquidity is possible.
Right.
But when I issue one bond and when I issue a second, bonds are finite period instruments. I issue a 5-year bond, it ends in 5 years. After 1 month, I issue a bond, it ends after 5 years and 1 month.
Right.
So these are under two different ISINs. The rate of interest is different. So the liquidity depends upon the size of the pool. The size of the pool is very small.
Right.
So considering this thing, that when we accuse that there is no thriving bond market, one of the misconception is this, that instinctively we compare it with the equity markets. That
Right.
is one thing. The second thing is this, that I mean, if corporate bond market we are saying, let's look at the government market. Government bond market is much bigger than this. But even there, you have been an economic journalist, you would be knowing that among the hundreds or thousands of the government bond, there are only a very few, 4 or 5 bonds which are called on the run securities.
Right.
And they are 10-year bond, nearly 10 in that 6-month period. After that, new bonds will be issued and they will come out of the on the run securities. The liquidity is limited to those only on the run securities.
Correct. Correct.
So otherwise, most of them are out. Government has got a facility of reissue. A corporate will never reissue a bond.
Right.
Why? Because why should he bunch his liabilities? Government is ready to bunch his liabilities because it can always refinance it.
Right.
So, but corporate is not ready to bunch the. So the liquidity pool is going to be very small. So it is unrealistic expectation to have the same kind of liquidity. Second, if you really look at the data of the corporate bond market, it has been growing. I think, I mean, don't have figure, but I don't think less than 12 to 15% CAGR, which is quite much. So then there were a lot of problems with them, with those bond markets. There were gray areas and there were unauthorized operators, this and that. All those problems have been largely solved by electronic book mechanism,
Right.
which has been introduced by SEBI. So a lot of work has been done. Then now we have made settlement compulsory on the stock exchange, and very importantly, this settlement is being done in central bank money. It is not through the bank money. It's not through. It's through the RTGS. The settlement is being made. It's in the central bank money. So there is then the data is fully available. Even if it is a private trade, it is reported in the repository. So there have been. I mean, if you ask me, really corporate bond market is not a failure story. It is a success story, but it seems failure if you compare it to the equity markets. But it is, and this is the conclusion we reached long time back in our report also. So that corporate bond markets, and actually as a matter of fact, leaving aside perhaps UK and USA, say in Australia and perhaps Hong Kong, corporate bond markets are not as active as in other developed economies also. And for corporate bond markets, there's another very big issue of a very strong, insolvency regime. So hopefully, with a stronger insolvency regime coming up, and when a bond fails, then it has got a residuary value. Then I should be able to dispose of that bond at 25, 30, 50%, whatever. So it is again linked with so many issues of credit default swaps
Right.
and all those things. So all these things, add up as a kind of a chicken and egg situation.
Exactly.
But the biggest dilemma is the certainty of the insolvency proceedings. So although it started on a very, very promising note, the
Yeah.
insolvency regime in India, but it is, kind of a,
Yeah.
there are legal issues, there are court issues. Courts look at from the constitutional point of view,
Right.
individual rights, and all those things.
Yeah.
So as a result, to whatever as the regulator thinks, regulators and courts don't think alike.
Yeah.
Definitely, and if they thought alike, then one of them will not be doing his duty.
Yeah.
So that is why insolvency regime, I think it is again it's being fine tuned. But as we have got a better, because both UK and USA have got a very developed insolvency regime.
Right.
So one of the reasons why the corporate bond market is more successful there is very good insolvency regime.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. A long standing debate exists between principle based and rule based regulations. While the former provides regulator entities with greater autonomy, the latter empowers regulators to detect wrongdoings better. What's your view on this? What are the myths and paradoxes of principle based regulations?
Yeah, actually, principle-based regulation is presented very often principle-based versus rules-based. So, actually, as a matter of fact, there is no regulation or no law which is entirely principle-based or entirely rule-based.
Yeah.
So that is one thing which is actually, even if you look at any any regulation, there would be some element of principle.
Right.
For example, if you look at Contract Act, in Contract Act there's so many things which are subjective. If you look at anything, fraud, fraud is quite subjective.
Yeah.
So anything, when you write rules, so there's no rule writing is possible in absence of a principle. So principles, and that is why whenever the cases go to court, the courts always say, look at the preamble of the act, look at the debates in the parliament before the act was passed. So they always interpret it with respect to the principles for which the act was passed. So that is one thing, that there is nothing like pure principle based, pure rule based. Now the major difference is that in principle based, rule based regulations we do use, but the emphasis is on principle, and what we say that what we are interested in is in the outcomes.
Right.
We lay down the principles. That principle is this, that you will treat your customers fairly.
Right.
We are not telling you how to treat your customer
Right.
fairly. We are telling where the rules tell that how to treat your customers fairly.
Right.
That when he comes, lay down a red carpet, give him a glass of water. Those could be the rules. But even after doing all those things, the customer might still not be dealt with fairly.
Yeah.
So the principle-based regulations say that I have told you how to treat. You should treat your customers so fairly, and if the customer is not treated fairly, I'll come and look whether he was treated fairly or not.
Right.
And then if I ask the regulator, how do I know? And then I said, look here, this is your job to find out, your industry, your size of the company, that how you do it. So principle-based regulation requires so much of knowledge and understanding and investment in the processes and from the part of the regulated entities.
Right.
Whereas the rule-based can be, people can put their brains on a shelf and apply the rules.
Right.
But the rule-based becomes kind of many a time people think that if you, as a paradox, if you think that if you lay down more rules, you are plugging all the loopholes. Actually, if you, the more threads you have got in a net, the more holes you are creating. So they will run away.
Right.
For example, the US regulations are more on the side of the rule-based regulation.
Correct.
And once I was researching on the branch licensing policy of various countries, so I found in one thing that Indian regulations said that you should open new branches when there is a need for it, and no other branch is nearby. Okay, so that was our RBI thing. But US say that if there is no branch within 746 feet line of sight, then you can open the branch. Okay, now what does that 746 feet mean? Now, supposing you are in Hong Kong, you are sitting in one building, the next building, across the road, it is line of sight will be 500 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet.
Yeah.
But if you try to go from that building to another building, it will take at least 20 minutes walk.
Yeah.
To go through. If you take a car, it will take half an hour.
Right.
So this is how rules fail. Yeah. So that is how the principle based. So this was started by FSA in a big way, where SEBI tried to do it very explicitly, because many of our regulations are principle based. For example, takeover code.
Right.
Takeover code control is totally principle based. The very concept of control is principle based.
Yeah.
In PIT, in the insider trading regulation, it is always the intention. So those are basically principle based regulations, but they were not called principle based regulation. So the first time SEBI said that yes, this is a principle based regulation was LODR, listing obligations disclosure requirement. So there in section 4, regulation 4, we laid down the principles. And these principles have not been thought of by SEBI. Okay. These principles are internationally accepted principles under OECD principles of corporate governance.
Okay.
So it is coming from there. Okay. So we have laid down there, and then we laid down minimum rules, and those minimum rules were actually existing rules. So under Clause 49 or under Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So there was this thing. But later what happens, that again the conflict between the regulators, and so the courts don't understand that what is this thing, that this post facto thing I don't understand. You must say a priori that what is the issue. So this is the main problem. So that is why more and more amendments are made to put in more regulations, but it is a kind of always becomes a cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
So the main issue is this, that principle based regulation offers so much of opportunity of innovation, freedom to the regulated entities, but there is a cost associated with it. You must invest so much in your ethics committees, you must invest so much in your compliance functions. So only then you will be able to take advantage. If you want to keep low level staff for paying them peanuts and try them to implement compliance based regulation, no, it is not possible. You have to invest in order to take full advantage. Then your business will not be thwarted by regulators' narrow view.
Correct. That's right. Moving to contemporary times, SEBI has been talking about regulating finfluencers. Do you think it's going to be a challenge for SEBI to stay ahead of innovative marketing strategies adopted by financial influencers to sidestep regulations?
Yeah, I think finfluencers is a very good example that where principle-based regulations are more useful, more practical than a rule-based regulation.
Right.
So influencers can be convinced, can be brought to the table only through a principles-based regulation. The more rules you put in, it's so easy to circumvent the rules.
Right.
And I mean, it is a very good question they have made just after this principle-based regulation question. No, that is a very good example that yes, influencers can only be regulated through principle-based regulations.
Yeah. You have worked with both RBI and SEBI. Can you share insights into how the coordination and collaboration between the two regulatory bodies have developed over the years?
Yeah, it is again a very personal question because I have been both in RBI and SEBI. You know, what happens that every regulator when it starts, so it has the act just gives you kind of a very de jure power, but it is not really. You have to earn your respect.
Yeah.
So when you start, you really don't command respect. SEBI didn't command respect when it began.
Yeah.
No, actually, to begin with, the community, the security market community, was quite dismissive of SEBI to begin with.
Yeah.
And since in the beginning days, RBI, in those days, RBI was a well-established regulator for something like 40 years. So it was a very well-established thing. So they did not seek actively cooperation and coordination with the SEBI in the beginning, in the very beginning. But as SEBI developed, established its credentials, it earned respect as it grew, then the coordination between the two started. So it started with the committee, meetings between inter-regulatory issue committees were formed, but that was at a relatively junior level, at general manager and chief general manager level. They used to meet and try to solve the problem, but everybody came with a set agenda from his side.
Right.
But slowly, as the things developed, there was more and more coordination between the two organizations. Now, the best example of the cooperation between the two organizations was the global financial crisis.
Right.
In global financial crisis, the two regulators, they cooperated at the very top, and decisions were taken overnight, implemented, crises were prevented, markets were stopped from going down. Something like what happened in case of Lehman could have happened with us also, but for the coordination between SEBI and RBI.
Right.
So, although this cooperation is very much on the formal grounds, there is the committee at the ministry level also. It is headed by the finance minister and all those things. Those issues are there at a very formal level. At the informal level, there was sometimes back, there were even informal meetings and breakfast meetings with the regulators. But it does depend upon the personality of the regulators. But all I can say that those days of SEBI versus RBI things are things of the past. After the cooperation the two organizations have shown during the global financial crisis, I would say it is one of the best examples how regulators can cooperate with each other to solve problems.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Saran. On that note, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Reena.